I'd like to welcome you all to a conversation with Dubai Business Events, Conference and Meeting World Video Destination Discussion Series. With me today, I have Steen Jacobsen, who's the Assistant Vice President of Dubai Business Events and City Operations. Welcome, Steen. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Ian.
No problem at all. First things first, I mean, as you know, the past 12 months have had a devastating effect on the global events industry. We've seen events in Dubai come back gradually. What's it been like for yourselves and the team in the last 12 months?
Well, obviously, the last 12 months has been like nothing else we've ever experienced before, and it's really sort of been a roller coaster ride where about a year ago, Dubai went into a quite strict lockdown that lasted until sort of end of May last year, and gradually from beginning of June, and then more into the summer, all economic sectors one by one opened up. By July last year, we were one of the first cities to open our borders for international visitors. In September, we opened for local business events. In October last year, we opened for international business events. So since then, life in Dubai has really been, as we know it, only a few minor restrictions, like the wearing of face masks when you're out in public areas, of course, respecting social distancing and so on. But apart from that, everything is open. Hotels, restaurants, shopping malls, attractions, everything is really open. So life here has really returned to normal.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And in terms of events, I mean, you've had a few big events held recently, like the likes of GITEX, Gulf Food. I think you just had Cybertech Global recently as well. I mean, have those been purely domestic events, or have they had an international flavor to them as well?
So obviously, we've not had the same number of events that we are used to here in Dubai, but we've been fortunate that we have been able to stage a number of quite large global events, of course, following the guidelines that's been issued by the authorities to ensure that we could do them in a safe and secure way. Both GITEX, as you mentioned, food that was held in the latest Cybertech Global that was held, have all been international events. They've all welcomed visitors from around the globe to come in. Obviously, with Dubai being open and Emirates having resumed operations to most of their destinations worldwide, Dubai is connecting the world again. And since we've opened for business events, it also means that now Dubai is accessible for visitors and delegates to come in and attend events in Dubai.
And what have been your biggest challenges, obviously, for the last 12 months? And what kind of help have you had?
Yeah, obviously, there has been a lot of changes and big challenges for us over the last 12 months. The first thing was really for us to restart the entire tourism and hospitality and event sectors again. And we did that in a very close collaboration between government partners and private stakeholders throughout the city. Designing and implementing guidelines that could ensure that whether it's staying in a hotel or going to an attraction or eating in a restaurant or organizing or attending a business event, that could all be done in a safe way. So we took lead on developing guidelines. So we issued a set of business events guidelines that are applicable for venues and for organizers that very easily and very clearly spell out what you need to do in terms of cleaning and sanitation of the venue, capacity limits, not to have too many people on the same crowded spaces at the same time, recommendation for contactless transactions, guidelines for serving of food and beverage, and of course the social distancing between people, the guidance and so on. All that was put in very, very simple guidelines that has been implemented and has been followed by organizers and venues, and that has really helped us restart the event sector again. It's been I think fantastic to see how events have come back. We know that organizers and organizations are so keen to do events again. So with the opportunities that now are open in Dubai, that you can do events, we see a lot of interest from organizers that want to stage their events back on.
Brilliant. And I was just touching that as well, but in terms of the health and safety aspect you were just mentioning there, so have you had to work closely with the venues and the organizers in terms of putting various measures in place and what the guidelines actually are?
Yes, the approach that we took to issuing those guidelines was a collaborative one to make sure that both from us from the public side and our private industry partners all came together to ensure that these measures that we put in place, that first of all, that they were taking care of the necessary things from a health and safety point of view. So they would minimize the spread of the virus and all that, but at the same time that they were sufficiently operational so they actually could be implemented and applied. And I think that collaboration between public and private partners ensured that the guidelines that eventually were issued in August last year and then came into effect from September onwards, that they've been very good. We've not had to change them once or revise them once since, because we took time to do them in a proper way. And of course, we have helped then both venues and organizers since who had to implement these guidelines to work hand in hand with them to ensure they understood the guidelines, that they were implemented in a proper way. We had our teams here from Dubai Tourism that would come out during the events and make sure that everything was according to the guidelines. And if something needed to be corrected, they could help the venue and the organizer correct things. So the collaborative approach, I think, has worked extremely well for us in designing and implementing the guidelines.
And testing, have you had testing at the airport, etc., people coming in? Is there testing on site as well?
So since Dubai opened its borders for international visitors back in July last year, a requirement has been that you have a negative PCR COVID test taken 72 hours prior to arrival. If you have that, then you can enter Dubai. Certain nationalities needs to take a second test on arrival, but if you have that, then there's no need for a quarantine. You can explore and enjoy the city from the moment you set foot here. So that's really convenient that you don't have to respect or have to comply with any sort of quarantine. But it's really the PCR test that is your access key. For events as such, there's not been a requirement to do rapid testing at events, but what event organizers have done, we had that for GITEX, we had it for Gulf Food, we will have it again for ATM, for the Arabian travel market that will take place from 16th to 19th of May. There will be on-site PCR testing at the venue available. So anyone who comes into Dubai who needs a PCR test to travel back to their home country, they can get a test done on site. They don't have to go to the hospital or clinic, but it's actually provided right there in the venue, so they can go and have their test done, get their negative test certificates, and then they're free to travel home.
Oh, that adds a lot of comfort as well, I'm sure. That adds people a good chance, obviously, to come out. It invites more people, I can imagine. Yeah. But in terms of actually saying on the travel restrictions that are currently in place, how's it changed or how's that affected business opportunities for Dubai?
Like anyone else, any other destination, we've obviously seen a dramatic dip in the number of events that we've are having. At the first very early stages, our primary focus was to work with event organizers to ensure that we could support them in either canceling their events or for most of them to postpone them. And so that was the role that we had, facilitating that between the organizers and venues and others here in Dubai. And then we've been, I think, fortunate to see that there's been, since October, when we opened for international business events, there's been a steady increase of events that has happened in Dubai. Some of them very large events like the GITEX and Gulf Food I mentioned before, but also a good number of association conferences. We've had some incentives, incentive travel groups that has been here as well as corporate meetings. So it's slowly starting to come back. And right now, I would say the interest is really starting to pick up. There's a lot of requests that we're receiving from event organizers internationally who are keen to start their events again. And I think that is only sort of showing us the first early stages of what really will happen once markets start to open up, that we will see events come back quite significantly.
That has a massive ripple effect as well for the likes of the hotels and the restaurants, etc., who obviously benefit from these events taking place. I mean, I imagine they've had a hard time as well over the last 12 months, even more so, maybe.
Yes, of course they have, because business events is a large driver of the tourism industry in Dubai. It brings in a lot of international visitors throughout the years. Of course, that has had an impact. But I must say that when we look at last year, in July last year, I think we had something like 40,000 visitors. And that's obviously only a fraction of the international visitors that normally comes to Dubai. But then from July and towards the end of the year, we ended the year with more than 550,000 visitors who came to Dubai in December. So we saw how the number of visitors grew throughout 2020. It has continued here in 2021. Obviously, some source markets are opening up, other source markets are closing down, but as you know, the strategy for us in Dubai has always been to diversify across as many markets as possible, so we don't leave ourselves vulnerable. But for business events, it's coming back, and we know that Dubai plays an important role, especially within some of those key sectors: technology, healthcare, food, and so on. Where big events are happening here, and we hear from a lot of corporates and the exhibitors and delegates. They do want to come back because they know the power of events.
Yeah, I'm one of them. I certainly want to come back. I mean, actually saying that, how are the next 6 to 12 months actually looking in terms of events? You mentioned that obviously you've got a lot of inquiries coming in. Any sort of big events that are coming that are sort of new business in particular, maybe?
Yes, I would say the next 12 months is looking fantastic, and of course, touch wood that everything will stay on the path that we're on right now in terms of the pandemic. We've got between now and when sort of summer kicks in, we've got a number of trade shows, Arabian Travel Market, as I mentioned, but also a number of other events that will happen before the summer break. And then really from September and onwards, we will be hosting probably the largest numbers of international association conferences, incentive groups, and of course, on 1st of October, Expo 2020 that will kick off, and the entire 6 months of the Expo 2020 will see so many business events happen that will support all the other things that are happening during Expo. So we're very optimistic, I must say, and positive about the outlook of events coming into Dubai between now and all the way until summer next year, really.
I was going to touch on Expo 2020. Obviously, it's been a year delay, essentially. So it's, I mean, that's all ready to go. Everything's been in place for a while. There must be quite a bit of excitement now that you can actually see a light at the end of the tunnel for this going ahead.
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, we're more excited about the Expo than we've ever been, and of course, the postponement of Expo has meant that there was another 12 months to make sure that Expo will be even bigger, even better, and even more exciting for people to come and visit. I've been out there on a regular basis to see how the site is being finalized, witness some of the thematic pavilions, see all the national country pavilions. The amazing design and the architecture is just mind-boggling. And knowing all the activities that will be happening during Expo, daily live performances, business events, entertainment, food and beverage, everything that you can expect from a World Expo, how that will come to life starting 1st of October and then extending all the way until end of March next year. So Expo is a fantastic opportunity for us in Dubai, the UAE, and the wider region, but also a platform that we see a lot of organizations, they really want to take advantage of the Expo, bring their events here because the entire world will be here. So that's a wonderful opportunity to take advantage of using Expo as a platform to stage your event at.
Absolutely. So, I mean, how well has Dubai, do you feel, coped with the pandemic? And I mean, what kind of lessons do you think you've learned from this?
I think Dubai has once again shown its resilience when it comes to crises like the pandemic. So many times over the last many decades, Dubai has shown that it has plans in place to deal with even the toughest situations. We've had a plan from very early on for how to deal with the pandemic, and that has really allowed us in Dubai to open very early, to control the virus. The whole testing and contact tracing has been among the highest and the best in the world. We've been rolling out the vaccine since last year. More than 65% of the eligible population in the UAE has been vaccinated now. So that has all, with that planning that went into it, has really allowed us to sort of to resume life as we know it. But it all comes down to the planning, resilience, the leadership, not the least, to ensure that we all knew what to do and how to do it.
I mean, from a lot of the press seems to show that the Asian market is leading in terms of in the renaissance of events returning, and from what you're saying to me, that Dubai seems to be very well placed or has done a great job in getting events back quickly and in a safe manner. I mean, where do you think Dubai sits compared to the rest of the world in terms of welcoming back events?
I think we're very well placed. First of all, because we're open and we've been open for quite some time. So we're ready. We've hosted a number of events already. So we have the expertise and the experience in staging events so they comply with the necessary health and safety guidelines. Especially what we've seen in Dubai is that the events that we've been hosting, they are international. People can actually come from other markets and attend events here. That will happen also eventually in other parts of the world. I, for one, I can't wait until I can go and meet yourself and so many other colleagues in our industry and attend our first international events. And I'm sure people in many different sectors and industries, they feel the same. One thing that we've learned from the pandemic is how important and significant face-to-face events they are. Despite all the Zoom calls we've been on and the virtual meetings and conferences that we participated in via online means, I think we've all been reminded of the importance and power of face-to-face events. That's I think one thing the pandemic has taught us.
Yeah, I quite agree. I mean, so where do you see Dubai going from here? I mean, how would your strategy and sort of business development now change going forward, based on what you've dealt with in the last 12 months?
Well, first of all, it's all about making sure that, of course, the events that are planned for Dubai in the next 12 to 18 months, including the Expo, that all that happens in a safe, healthy environment, to make sure that everyone feels safe and there's no risk from hosting these events. That we're confident about, but that's our main objective right here, because the pandemic will stay with us for a while longer. I think we all have to realize that. So it's about making sure that we can manage things around it. So that will have our priority, our first priority. And then, of course, we've done that also through the pandemic. We will continue to do that, working very proactively with organizations and event organizers globally to position Dubai, to talk to them about how Dubai can accommodate the necessary requirements, ensure that the events that we bring into Dubai, that they are aligned with our industry sectors here, with the priority from the government in terms of economic development. That has been something that we've done for years, but I think it only will become even more important that we do that and we work closely on that alignment to ensure that we can really bring face-to-face events back and bring events back that has a long-term and a meaningful impact and legacy on Dubai, of course, but also on the delegates and the organization behind it.
Absolutely. I quite agree with that. And in terms of what valuable piece of advice would you give, would you have given yourself looking back 12 months ago?
Oh, it's a good question. I mean, if we all could have anticipated this, I think that would have taught us a lot and would have been very helpful. I think the approach that we took here in Dubai, where it was, as I mentioned before, a very collaborative one that was very transparent, one that was guided by data and science, one where there was a clear plan in place, where there was guidance provided by the leadership, and there were the necessary committees and groups formed in Dubai that could take lead on this. That has been key. And I think also that we've been very consistent in our approach to the pandemic. We were one of the first countries in the world that's mandated everyone to wear face masks when you were out in public. And that has stayed, and that's still a requirement. The things about, the PCR testing and these sorts of things, it's been some guidelines that has been extremely efficient, but at the same time extremely easy to understand and comply with. And that consistency, I think, has helped us a long way. We've not gone back and forth and then opened up and then closed down and opened up and so on. We've been able sort of to stay on the path that was outlined from the very beginning because of the consistency in the strategy and the approach.
Brilliant. Well, Steve, I mean, I think that's a good way to end, and I really appreciate you giving us an update, and thank you for your time. And Dubai seems in a very good place right now, and long may that continue. And I certainly look forward to the day where we can catch up and have a drink in person and have a good chat. And again, I really appreciate your time and supporting this particular interview itself. So wishing you all the best, good luck going forward, and hope to catch up with you very soon.
Thank you so much, Ian. It was good to speak to you.
You too. All the best. Thank you.